Hi there, I'm Diego Martinez. Welcome to another episode of CHOONS, a podcast about the songs we vibe to. On this show, we take a close look at how underrated music anthems were made and have stood the test of time, all with the help of the people responsible for creating them, or as we like to call them, the tune architects. Today, we stay in the realm of dance music and chat with both producer Ish Ledesma and DJ Noel Sanger about Company B's Fascinated.
I had no idea it was going to work, especially not like that. I had no idea it was going to become so big.
Everything in that song is a hook down to that synth riff. Like everybody can dun 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 dun. Like everybody knows it.
Company B followed a very prevalent trend of producer-led dance groups that surged over the course of the 1980s. This all-female trio was formed in 1986 by Cuban-American musician Ismael Ish Ledesma, who previously fronted the bands Foxy and OXO, and played in tracks by the likes of ABBA, Miami Sound Machine, and the B-52's Fred Schneider. Under Ish's guidance, and wearing their signature platinum wigs, the group rode the wave of the Latin Freestyle movement of the time, with songs like Full Circle, Perfect Lover, Signed in Your Book of Love, and of course, Fascinated. They charted on Billboard with these 4 singles, and with 2 LPs on Atlantic Records between the years of 1987 and 1989. Since then, Company B and its different lineups have continued to play to adoring fans and release songs and albums on independent labels. The story of how Company B and Fascinated came to be is also the story of Ish's journey in the music biz, driven by the excitement of putting bands together straight out of his garage. He found greatness through trial and error, taking cues from the melting pot of sounds that surrounded his adopted home of Miami, Florida. What started as a hobby at the age of 13 quickly evolved into the hard but rewarding life of a music man who was constantly looking for the right band to be in, the right musicians, and the right sound.
I only had a few groups. I had one group called Chocolate Energy.
This is Ish Ledesma.
And then I joined a group called the Bird Watchers. And they were a big group in Miami at the time. And they played at a place called The Climax. And I was with them for a couple of years. Then I joined another group called Timber Flash. That lasted about a year. And then me and Richie Puente, who was also in Timber Flash, decided to just get away from those guys and put our own group together and look for the very best players that we could find. And that's where Joe Galdo and Arnold Macedo came in. It took us about a year to put Foxy together.
After handpicking musicians and rehearsing for 6 months, Foxy was good to go, with Ish on lead vocals and guitar, Richie Puente, son of the legendary Tito Puente, on percussion, Charlie Murciano on keyboard, Arnold Macedo on bass guitar, and Joe Galdo on drums. The group had started playing at various clubs in Miami and Fort Lauderdale when a connection between Arnold Macedo and engineer Ray Martinez led to a fateful meeting with record distributor Henry Stone, who hired Foxy as the main session band for his indie label, TK Records, founded in 1972 and home to a plethora of artists such as George and Gwen McCrae, Betty Wright, Timmy Thomas, Jimmy Bo Horn, and KC and the Sunshine Band.
Arnold's roommate was working at TK Records. So he took us there, and we started playing for all the people there, like, you know, Betty, Timmy, everybody. We would go do like 3 or 4 songs a day. I have no idea what we played on, except I know that we played on Rocking Chair, and that became a big hit.
Sexy baby, good loving daddy, ooh, let me be your rocking chair, just rock me away from here.
Everybody who you heard, I mean, if it was a single singer, then it was, you know, probably us or somebody from KC or whoever. It was just a mixed number of people playing on their records. But if it was like a band, like, you know, like us, we played for ourselves. Casey and the Sunshine Band played for themselves. We were always available, and we were good. We were all Cuban. So because of being Cuban, we could play R&B or play, you know, rock or play whatever they asked us to do. You play something feels Latin. Sure, you got it, you know. Somebody would show us the chord chart and we'd play it. That was it.
In addition to playing on other people's songs, Foxy was allowed to cut tracks of their own for Dash, a TK subsidiary. They released their self-titled debut in 1976, which included 2 top 5 hits on the dance charts, but failed to make an impact on a bigger scale. Their fortunes changed with their second LP, Get Off, in 1978. The album's funky title track went to #1 on the R&B chart and cracked the top 10 on pop. It was later followed by the single Hot Number, which placed #21 in 1979. Foxy's chart success, long worked for and deserved, should have been a justified reason to celebrate. However, it coincided with 2 devastating events that occurred towards the end of 1979. TK Records going bankrupt and the end of disco's reign.
This is now officially the world's largest anti-disco rally.
Though the music Ish made with Foxy was not so much disco, and rather Latin-flavored rock, it got thrown in the mix with the rest of TK's output during this period. They became yet another casualty of the disco sucks movement.
It wasn't disco. We were trying not to do disco because everything we played on was disco. For other people, we did a lot of disco songs. But for us, we were just trying to come up with a sound. But by then, TK was primarily a disco label, and it fell apart. Like there was this disco hate thing that formed.
Us rock and rollers here in Chicago think disco sucks. Disco sucks. Disco sucks.
They even burned records at a stadium or something. I don't know. Something really weird. And it all kind of just fell apart. So we were like getting started, and it just fell apart.
After the dust was settled, Ish moved on to Geffen Records and his next project, a dance rock band called OXO, which included guitarist Orlando Nunez, bassist Frank Garcia, and drummer Freddie Allwag.
Let me tell you about the girl I know. She's been to Paris, France, and she can really dance. And I got spin stop, she's got no stop. She beats you up and then she lets you drop. Listen.
They scored a surprise hit in 1983 with the top 40 song Whirly Girl. But just as the track was climbing the charts, OXO simply disintegrated due to politics and power struggles between the band's management and the label's head, David Geffen.
They were telling us stuff to do, and they wanted Tommy Mottola to be our manager. and he wanted to be our manager, but we already had a manager that was supporting us and everything. We stayed loyal to our group, our circle of friends that we had. And David didn't like that. He was very adamant about us doing what he said to do. And it could have gone well and it could have gone bad. You never know. You just never know when you're gonna make a decision, and it might be the best decision you ever made, or it might be a bad one. You only know later.
Down but not out, Ish stayed with Geffen, where he released a solo album, On This Corner, in 1986. His collaboration with influential producer John Robie on this LP informed what he'd later do that same year with an entirely new project called Company B.
I was doing a solo album on Geffen that was done in New York. I did it with John Robie. John Robie was the guy who did all the work for Arthur Baker. Things like Planet Rock and A-E-I-O-U. We played on a lot of hits, and it was basically him. And he was sequenced a lot. Everything he did was a sequence. And when I got done with my album and went home and was waiting for it to come out, my wife said, you've had enough tries at trying to make something happen. Why don't you make a group for me? Let's get a couple of girls and we'll sing and you do the music. And I said, okay, let's do it. And that was it. She never said, let's do this kind of music or let's do that kind of music. I said, okay, girls, well, it's gonna have to be dance music. Because I don't know what else to do with a bunch of girls. And we started recording. Maybe recorded like 3 or 4 different things. And then I did Fascinated, which was all heavily influenced by Robie, by John Robie's sequencing. Because I had never done any sequencing or anything like that. And then all of a sudden I go, yeah, you can just play something for 2 bars and then it repeats. And then it just goes on and on. So by having worked with him, I saw what he was doing. So I kind of emulated what he was doing and came up with all those songs, in which Fascinated was one of those songs.
Inspired by Robie's sequencing, a killer bass line he found, and a popular Star Trek catchphrase, Ish wrote down the playful lyrics to Fascinated, sung with such lustful urgency by vocalist Charlotte McKinnon.
Fascinated I used because Spock said fascinating. Spock from Star Trek was continuously using that word, fascinated. Fascinating.
Well, fascinating is a word I use for the unexpected. Fascinating. Fascinating.
And I thought it was a great word, but I just wrote, it just came out. I didn't plan it, Like there was the bass line for it. My friend Rick Quintero, who was the DJ at 1235, he showed me the bass line from another song. There was another song that went dun 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 dun. But it kept doing the same thing, like that. Never changed between those 2 chords. And he's like, do a song with this bass line. It's that simple. It wasn't thought about, there was no thinking involved. It just happened. I wrote the lyrics. I had the girl coming over, Paul Lewis, who was another guy from the old TK days. He brought in Charlotte McKinnon, who sang the song. And as she was coming, I was writing down the words. But, they're simple words.
I want to play with you tonight.
I want to play with you tonight. Come on, you know. It's silly. There's nothing intellectual about it, you know. Hold me, that's all that's on my mind. It's but those kind of words work. The one thing that the song does have is that it goes from a minor progression to a major progression. When it goes to the chorus, when it goes, I. When it goes to I, it turns major. And when you change from a minor key to a major key, it's like a huge release, you know, that you don't realize it, but you feel it, because it just turns, it just goes really positive. A major key is a positive thing. Minor key, you go, you know, it could be sad. It's sad. There's a sadness to the minor key. But as soon as you go major is like boom, you know. So changing from minor to major is one of the big things about the song. It's subliminal. Nobody knows it. I didn't do it on purpose.
And that tension and release is sort of like, that is so integral to dance music as we know it now.
This is progressive house artist and DJ Noel Sanger, who remixed Fascinated in 2010.
Is the whole art of DJing and the sort of like the world that I'm in with the sort of like the, you know, the sort of global underground, Sasha, John Digweed kind of stuff. Like that's it. It's dark, 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 boom, the light, you know, and you know, a great record may not be a great record if you didn't set it up right with the 3 records before that. But this is that in one track, you know, in one song. First of all, everything's a hook. Every minute of every you know, every second, every passage is memorable. So it's like it's not like you have a very boring verse and then a chorus that is memorable. Like everything in that song is a hook, down to that synth riff. Like everybody can dun 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 dun. Like everybody knows it. So I would say that's number one, is that everything is memorable about it. The vocal performance is also, the performance itself is memorable. Even the fact that, you know, she seems to be in the chorus reaching almost beyond her range. It just, I think it gives it an intensity. You know, if nothing else, it gets people, you know, gets their attention.
I'm fascinated by your love, boy. I'm fascinated by your love toy. I'm fascinated by the way you make me feel.
Even with the most endearing elements of the tune, Ish really didn't think too much of it. For him, Fascinated was just another track in his catalog. Thankfully, someone else thought otherwise.
I thought, it's garbage. I put it away, and then one day I was back at TK, because I went back to TK. It wasn't TK anymore, but it was Henry. Henry Stone was there. And Henry and I always got along, and he just let me work, do whatever, you know. And I was in my room listening to stuff I had done, and I happened to be playing Fascinated at that point. So he knocked on the door, and he said, "What the fuck is that?" And I go, "It's a song, you know." And he's like, "Man, that's fantastic. I want you to go to Mike Fuller right now and master that thing. And the music conference is happening next week. So we need to have records of that song for next week." So I said, okay, you know, and went to Mike, had it mastered, took it to the Miami printing place where they make the records and stuff. And Henry got him just in time. And he passed it out over at that music conference. And by the end of the conference, Fascinated was like the big thing. 3-4 days later, it was like everybody was talking about Fascinated.
Following its debut at Miami's Winter Music Conference, Company B's Fascinated was released by independent record label The Summer in 1986. The song struck a chord, not just with industry insiders, but with regional DJs and dancegoers. And it wasn't long until Atlantic Records took notice, picking up the nationwide distribution of the single and signing the trio, which by this time included Leslie Livrano, Ish's wife Whirly Ledesma, and Susan Gonzalez Johnson. Fascinated crossed over from the dance clubs to mainstream pop radio in no time. It remained in the top spot of Billboard's dance charts for 4 weeks in March 1987, and it reached number 21 on the Hot 100. The success of the single was further powered by a music video filmed in New York's Paradise Garage and major TV appearances on programs like Club MTV and its showtime at the Apollo.
My first guest comes to us by way of Miami. Please put your hands together for Company B! Woo!
The girl's recognizable image, donning blue leather and big platinum wigs, also had a lot to do with their notoriety and connection with their long-standing gay audience.
They were doing a gig at Uncle Charlie's. It's a gay club on Bird Road. I don't know if it's there anymore, but they were going to play there. And Francis said, "Let's get these white wigs and try them." The leather gear didn't make a difference. That's not what made the look. The look was the white wigs. And the gay audience just went crazy for them with the white wigs. It just worked. Things worked for Company B.
The timeless and infectious energy of Company B's Fascinated is still being felt on clubs all over the world, like a blood rush to the head. Multiple DJs and producers have kept the flame alive with their own spin on the song, from Spanish renditions and techno beats to smooth and silky R&B. One example is a remix by critically acclaimed progressive house artist Noel Sanger, who was offered the opportunity to rework Fascinated back in 2010.
When I remix a track, sometimes if it's a vocal, sometimes the vocal is the only thing I use. In this case, the synth line was so iconic that I had to recreate it. I didn't use a sample, but I replayed it, and so it's not exactly the same, but it's kind of pretty much right there. And I guess, for me, it's, I was DJing, one of the places I played pretty frequently, it was called Griffin in Fort Lauderdale, and it's just a great little club with a great sound system, and people that loved house music. So I really, when I made that remix, was thinking about the crowd there. It was one of those crowds where it's about half, 50 to 60% real music connoisseurs, and then the other 40% are people who it was at the Seminole Hard Rock Casino. So it's like people that are tourists or staying at the hotel or they're at the casino. They're just there for the party and they go along with it. So I knew this was a kind of a track where let me make this, have the sort of house vibes that I know will go over at the club. Then also sort of make it a little more progressive than what South Florida was into, because I've always been a progressive house artist. And then drop everything so that when the chorus comes in, the people that are there, which, it's Miami, right? Everybody knows that song. So everybody's going to go nuts. And it was literally in my mind, as I made that remix, I'm in the DJ booth of Griffin. And it's interesting because I had a lot of DJ friends that were like, I need a copy of that. I need a copy of that. And if they lived in southern states, if they lived in Texas, if they lived in South Florida, if they lived in California, any place where freestyle was big, where there was a big Latino population, they were super into it. But then friends from other countries, other states, they didn't get it at all. Like, I don't like that vocal. I don't Like, can you give me the instrumental? I'm like, you don't want the instrumental, like, just wait till you play it in Texas. People will go crazy. So that was kind of the thinking, behind it and where I was trying to go with it.
At the time of recording my interview with Ish Ledesma, he was still recovering from heart surgery in his Texas home. One of his friends has set up a GoFundMe on his behalf to cover the costly medical bills. And if you'd like to support Ish, you can find this page in the notes for this episode. We wish him all the best in his recovery. He has worked with some of music's biggest names and has over 200 songs, but Fascinated remains his crowning achievement and his most remembered composition. 35 years after its initial release, the song has evolved from a little ditty made up in the studio to a bona fide masterpiece, a fact that continues to surprise him.
Anytime something works, is a happy accident. Yeah, I mean, if I knew it was going to work every single time, then every single thing that I do would work. But I had no idea it was going to work, especially not like that. I had no idea it was going to become so big. And it hasn't really faded either. A lot of people know that song, Like, they don't even know that Get Off was a pop chart hit and stuff. And Fascinated somehow never made it past 20. Or something like that on the pop charts. But if I meet somebody and I tell them, I had like this hit Get Off and Hot Number, and I sing a little bit for them, I'm trying to remember, But if I go, I had this other big hit, and it was like dun 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 dun, and they go, oh yeah, I know that song, and they sing it to me. I'm fascinated, they just know it. Always, it never fails.
Thanks to Ish Ledesma and Noel Sanger for their contributions to this episode, and thank you for tuning in. CHOONS is a series of music memoirs produced and hosted by Diego Martinez. My executive producer is Nick Fresh, and my audio engineer is Adam Fogel. If you want to join the conversation and see exclusive content related to this story, be sure to follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at CHOONSPod. That is CHOONSPOD. Rate us and give us a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join us next time as we explore the legacy of some extraordinary tracks on a new episode of CHOONS.